VR Chat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunter's universe. His continuing mission? To seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts. To discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind. And to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to Gunter's Universe. How's everybody doing out there?
Doing well. Doing great.
Yeah! Packed house. Amazing. This is great. This is an amazing occasion. But for those of you that are new to things, just quickly, this is the one and only live talk show broadcasting from the metaverse. And you can join us here every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific to watch the show live inside VR. And there's many people watching now on the live stream at twitch.tv/Gunter444. So let's get into it. I'm very excited for tonight's show. We're going to travel down the rabbit hole and see what comes out the other side. And with me to do this is a couple friends. Duncan Trussell, of course, is with us. He's known for many things, including his spiritualistic, psychedelic stand-up comedian with a fascination for VR and transhumanism. He's also the host of the popular Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Duncan, thank you for coming on the show. How's it going, my friend?
Great. This is amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm completely blown away by this. It's amazing. I cannot believe that this is happening.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm so glad that you're liking it, and this is going to be a great time for all of us. We also have the intrepid Zach Leary with us. Zach is the host of the It's All Happening podcast, a show bringing you conversations with amazing people about consciousness, art, yoga, tech, and music. As he's also the co-founder of the speed dating on DMT movement, or at least that's what his Twitter says. What's up, Zach?
It is. I'm starting a new thing, speed dating on DMT. If anybody wants to join this foundation, it's happening. Thank you, Gunter, for having me. It's really great to be here, wherever here is. I think that can be debatable where here is right now, sure. But it's great to be here.
All right, with us also is my friend AtomJaay. He's a 3D print artist and a psychonaut. Adam, how are you?
Good. Super stoked to be here.
That's great. And obviously a big fan. We've been talking about Duncan and Zach's work for about a week now. And to my right I have Bob Nichols. He helps me co-host the show. And he also has a psychedelic band named Sunchill 3. And he's also the host of the Left-Handed VR podcast. Bob, how's it going, buddy?
Fantastic.
And in front of me, Dustin the Wind just joined. Dustin, I met him here in VR chat. There's a little bit of synchronicity because my name that my mother gave me isn't Gunter. My real name is, Dustin. And there's quite a bit of synchronicity because, Dustin, I believe you lived in an RV at some point, and I myself live in an RV, so crazy to meet you in VR chat and have those similarities. How are you?
I'm doing very, very good tonight. How's everyone else doing in here?
Real good.
Good.
This is amazing.
Well, let's get into some conversation here. I want to talk, a little bit about the future and technology. I want to just kind of go around the table, see what you guys think about VR. How, obviously VR is a big deal. People here think that. We've been diving into it for a couple years now. We love social VR. We love meeting up in these places. It's our metaverse. It's a sort of multiverse. Duncan, what do you think about this? What do you think about VR?
Well, I think what we're witnessing, one thing, I think VR is the wrong name for it. I think reality is just reality. And calling it virtual reality is a diminution of the thing, I think, somehow, but this isn't quite reality. It's virtual, but that's obviously insane to say that reality has gradients. Reality is just reality. And what we're looking at here is the discovery of a medium that is simultaneously a geography. And that's a real curiosity to think, that what has happened is that humanity has discovered a medium that we can actually burrow inside of and shape while we're inside of it and exist together inside of it. And so it's fascinating that this is this new strata of our universe, or a newly discovered strata of our universe, that we are just learning how to exist within just right now, and also how to tune it in, because this is some transmission from the imagination into imprinting itself into the digital medium, and then after it's imprinted itself, it sort of inflates into a space where we can all gather, and we're just figuring it out right now, which is a really beautiful thing, which is why it's so cool to be here at the very beginning of the thing, as we begin to understand just how powerful this technology is, and the implications of what's happening here, what it's going to look like in 10 or 15 years is astounding.
Right. I've been waiting for this for 15 years, it seems. I would listen to Terrence talk, and he'd get into virtual reality, and it is a weird world. Like everything is reality, and it is like it's just an extension of ourselves to a degree. And I do think of it as like we're just in the beginning. I feel like we're infants just being born into this sort of situation where we're able to open our eyes, but we're not able to touch anything yet. But all that's going to change, and we're going to be maturing here, and it's pretty wild. Zach, what about you? What interests you about VR?
Well, gosh, it's so cool to see something manifest like this, because I remember playing with virtual reality in the early 90s with Jaron Lanier and John Perry Barlow and those guys, like way back then. And, for whatever reasons, VR it took a while to gestate and sort of become what we're seeing now. But I'm with Duncan and you, Gunter, in the sense that I think it's the nomenclature around it. And with all of these things too, like virtual reality and artificial intelligence, I think we just we need to drop the word artificial, because I don't think it is artificial. I think this is an extension of our imagination. And just as, apples grow from a tree, virtual reality grows from a human, and this is just a mutation of our species. This is a mutation of our species, and a mutation of our condition, and a mutation of the dimensions that we can play in and exist in and hang out in and get to know each other in. So, it's so promising. I mean, the promise of the future, it's right here, and it's great to hang out and play with that.
Yeah, we're all extending ourselves. We're able to collapse distance and be here in a space. Everybody wants to hang out with other people, and it was hard to, I couldn't really go see Mr. Q in Sweden because that's just not practical, but here I now have a friend that lives in Sweden, and we hang out together all the time. Adam, how about some of your thoughts, maybe some questions for Zach and Duncan?
Well, you mentioned that you got to try out VR with some of the early pioneers. I was wondering if you were ever privy to any hushed conversations about what the future of VR might be, things that were too taboo to talk about. I don't know if that ever did come up, but there's parallels to nanotechnology where there were some books that were written where the information about possibly resurrecting dead bodies with nanites was far too taboo, where their conclusions were led to, well, if we could do it to one, we'd morally have to do it to every dead body, just due to ethics. And I was just wondering if there's anything like that in the the early stages of VR, where futurism got to the point where they're we can't even handle thinking about this yet.
Gosh, yeah, I don't remember anything quite like that, with the transcendence of the soul, and how we can relate with, people who might have passed on from this dimension, but kind of keeping them alive in virtual reality. But I do remember a lot of talks about, especially in the early days, about a way to, bridge understanding, and to bridge, compassion, because it erases our walls of humanity a little bit, and humanity as we know it. So, this is a great, imagine now in the year 2016, if we had if we had Donald Trump and members of ISIS sitting around this table right now, it's such a softer way in to get to, to actually have a discussion without the walls of all this fear that we've created around ourselves. And I remember talks like, early on, the guys the early pioneers of VR, they were really, humanists and psychedelicists as well. So just, these are the early days of transhumanism.
Some of the early guys, your dad, Timothy Leary, was, I remember seeing his mind mirror application, a video of it. I didn't use it. I didn't have a Commodore 64 or that kind of technology, but what was it like back then in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah, earlier, as we were before the show actually started, as we were, I did see some mind mirror clips on the big screens back here, which was so cool. I remember that way. I think that came out in 86 or 87, and immediately, I think, of all the things that my dad worked on, the things that I resonate mostly with is him being a futurist, is him being a technologist. He called the PC the LSD of the 80s. And so if he could only, of all the things that I wish he could have stuck around to see, this would be it. This is the stuff, this stuff that was being talked about back then, and especially, virtuality and social networking. These are really where he was hanging his hat in the late 80s and early 90s. So, I remember those talks so well, and to see it, it's taken a little longer than we thought it would, but here we are.
So I really like Terence McKenna. He really, such a wordsmith, and he kind of enlightened me over the last decade. I found his work right after he passed away. Another person that, wish could have seen this sort of virtual reality as he talked about it so much. So a few things he said is, could be a place for us to show each other our dreams, or going to be able to build structures in the imagination that we can share with each other. And so we're already starting to feel this and see this. And kind of like how VR is also related to language, and how language is virtual reality. And I thought we could maybe dive into Terence and some of those ideas. Duncan, do you have any thoughts on any of that?
Well, I think that what's really nuts about this thing that's happening here is that it's not that we're talking about allowing people access into our dreams, which is certainly one way that this technology is going to be used. That input-output between the human brain, digitizing the impulses in the human brain in some way that you can animate them in virtual reality space, I would say that's an inevitability. I don't know when it'll happen. I actually just read this fascinating article about a neurologist who went to, the FDA wasn't allowing him to work on the neural prosthesis that he wanted to work on. So I don't remember which country he went to, but he had an implant that he had created himself implanted into his brain. And he was hoping to somehow be able to see if he could digitize, I think it was his language, because they want to use this stuff with people who have locked-in syndrome, so that people who are completely paralyzed will have some way to communicate with the world. But of course, that technology that he's experimenting with, it's one of the first times in human history that we've seen this kind of neural prosthesis taking place. And I would say it's a matter of time before we do figure out some way to decode the electrical patterns of the human brain in a way that we can reassemble them in this space and exist in other people's thoughts and consciousness. And of course, what that's going to do for us as a society is, well, it's impossible to say. But to me, what's really interesting about this technology, and I'm sorry, Zach, to use the term artificial intelligence, but I don't know another, computer intelligence, let's say, machine intelligence. What's really interesting to me is the idea of not when the human mind is animated and expanded into virtual space so other people can exist within one person's mind, or merge minds, or fuse minds, or fuse all the minds of every person in the planet into some super universe that is downloaded, recorded, and eternally accessible as long as whatever digital medium it's stored on is available. But when you add to it machine intelligence, so that the advanced artificial intelligence that's on the way, no doubt, what happens when it starts constructing universes with some intentionality behind it? What happens then? What kind of dimensions are we going to go into when what is essentially an alien mind begins to construct these kinds of digital hives that we can move inside of? That's something that I'm very interested in, too. I think that to finish this weird rant, the other thing about it that I think of is that we also have to look at the fact that every single image, every photograph, every painting, every drawing, anything that exists in digital space is inevitably going to be scanned by computers and translated into a virtual environment that we can go into with all the various phenomena in whatever the picture or painting is, assigned to artificial intelligence and animated. So that means that every picture currently in existence, every painting currently in existence is a portal to another dimension that will open up once technology allows computers to interpolate that data into VR space.
Let's think about like the machines building their worlds, but we're the ones building the machines. We're extending ourselves into the world through these technologies. I feel like we're going to change along with all of that, and so these machines are kind of us too, and so it's like some sort of weird merging together. Who knows, if we're doing those things together at the same time.
Like a cyborg.
Well, it's like a cyborg. It's back to the mutation thing, and I think, Duncan was talking about on his rant too. It's like this is an opportunity for us to truly share a collective consciousness in an information base. So it's like, the true promise of what the World Wide Web was about creating this egalitarian information platform, whereas everybody could have access to the same information without there being any tiers or exclusivity to it. And so if we're existing in this dimension here, if eventually once the mutation really gets to an extreme sense, we can have these knowledge to of access to these pillars of information that everybody could share, and that's so cool.
Super cool.
I'd like to throw something at that thought.
Yeah.
You keep calling it a mutation, but I put to you, what if it's an emulation? And we tend to have this great disconnect between the natural world. We recognize that our sciences and innovations in technology replicate in nature, the natural processes up into a certain point, and then we give ourselves permission to jump away from it. Everything from, a lever is an emulation of the throwing arm, or a parallel and serial processor in a computer is much like the left and right side of the brain and how that works. But then when we go to Wi-Fi, we say, well, okay, now we're leaving the natural realm processes and we're taking it on our own. But what if the existence of our Wi-Fi is evidence that there is biological Wi-Fi? What if the existence of this dimension that we've created is evidence that a collective consciousness already did exist, and we're emulating our collective imagination?
That's cool.
Man, that's cool.
Wow. You just blew our minds.
What if what if the secrets of the universe? What if Krishna's ultimate Leela, or Shiva's ultimate destruction is supposed to be experienced here, and it's been here all along, and we're just finding it out now.
Yeah, I sort of feel like VR is like the ultimate tool. It's like the Philosopher's Stone. It's what all humanity's been tool refining and building more and more and looking for, that sort of Philosopher's Stone. But it's something that's now we're building, and this is it. This will be able to transform into anything that we want, and I feel it's going to impact us hard because, like, we don't really know ourselves or our capabilities, but when we get into this limitless boundaryless space, we're going to start unraveling, like being on a psychedelic experience, and how you do go beyond your ego. We're going to like dive into ourselves deeply and then come back changed and be able to affect the, well, we would say real world, but be able to affect the meat space with this new knowledge and stuff we've learned about ourselves.
Absolutely. And what a meditation tool. Because if anything can teach mindfulness, it's this experience, which is that here we are in some alternate space, and yet we can clearly feel ourselves in whatever you want to call the reality that we currently exist in, the original reality, world one, whatever you want to call it. You can feel yourself. So here is a great experience of two fields of reality existing at once, which is there is this digital space that we're existing in right now, yet simultaneously we can all feel the three-dimensional physical space that we are existing in. And in the same way, when you go into your physical body, again, when we take the goggles off, you can feel the exact identical feeling as though there is some other layer that is just beyond the physical space as well. Do you know what I'm saying? This is like the third projection of something, the human body itself being the second projection, and then the initial state of awareness that seems to be what we all emerge from, according to a lot of different Eastern philosophies, is our primary self. So in this way, in this space, our primary self is our meat bodies. And it's a cool way to kind of understand the concept of mindfulness and to play around with experiencing both realities at once. The strangeness of looking out into this digital landscape while feeling the wooden table in front of me, my physical body. It creates a really interesting convergence of experience, which I think has a lot of utility in teaching mindfulness.
You guys...
Yeah,
Are you guys interested in like looking further past VR into the future, the next step? Are you guys looking forward to or would maybe entertain the thought of wetware, getting neural interfaces?
You know what, man? I never in my life dreamed that a gingerbread man would ask me if I would consider getting neural interfaces.
Are you guys open to that?
Personally,
you look delicious.
I'm very tasty.
I hope that there is an ongoing debate in the halls of MIT and Berkeley and the Singularity University that whether or not it needs to be embedded in order to do it right. I'm really hoping that we can have the choice to take it off when it wins out, and that probably relies on things like field theory rather than hardwiring into neurons and such. But I hope that debate is going on.
Yeah, me too. I always said I'll do it, but I won't be like the first 1,000 that does it. I'll get some wetware.
Yeah, but those first 1,000 are going to have statues built about them, if you think about it. Like that neurologist who went to some shithole to have his skull opened up to get a neural implant put in because he wanted to see if he could figure out a way for people with locked-in syndrome to communicate with the rest of the world. That's a saint. Like, that's a fucking saint. And he after the surgery, he can talk for a few days. For the rest of his life, he's going to have this little implant in his brain. It sounds horrible when you think about it.
I think we'll have to go through the augmented reality contact lens phase first, and I think that's going to be a crazy time to live through.
Yeah.
There's so many ramifications to something like that, and I think the effects that it would have on language are going to be crazy with just the way it'll turn into a visual medium. Basically, visual metaphors will replace emojis, and your internal CAD program, every time you have a conversation and you come up with a visual metaphor to say something, that goes into your library, so you do it twice as fast the next time. And I think that is, going to be where we're going, because seeing is understanding, and we never are working with the same dictionary, and visual metaphors just cut right through the whole thing. It's been said that words are hyperdimensional or lower dimensional slices of meaning, and I think we can rectify that with AR.
Wow.
Yeah, and that person that Duncan was talking about, that first person who's going to slice their head open and slice open their meat jacket and put that chip in, that person is born. That person is out there somewhere. The person exists already, Like, like they said, the first person to walk on Mars has already been born. So, same goes for this.
They could even be here.
It's me. I'm doing both, motherfuckers. I'm going to Mars. Putting in my head. I'm gonna write my name with my dick on it.
Oh my God! Whoa! Whoa! Yeah, maybe.
Welcome to the strange and the weird. Dustin the Wind over here, and I haven't really recognized him. He was getting things set up, and just want to thank him for setting this meeting up, for hanging out in VR chat, and just being super cool.
Hi, Dustin.
How's it going? Yeah, no, absolutely. This was my pleasure. This is honestly so fucking cool just to, be at the table with Zach next to me and Duncan across from me and having this whole big event going. This is just, I'm so happy I could help set this up. It really was no problem.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Terence McKenna's time wave theory. It's actually a bit complicated to explain, but it's sort of just takes on the idea of the universe and how it's evolving. We all understand this. We all, can see how it's getting more complicated. Processes and things are building upon each other, from the cooling of the universe to the formation of planets to organic life spawning up. All these periods keep getting shorter and shorter, and the human life, since we've been humans and what we consider humanity has only been, 50, 100,000 years, and the machines we're building, it's like happening at light. So, the singularity or this time wave idea was that at some point, it just gets so dense with things building up and upon each other that, trying to imagine what that's like seems like it would be the unimaginable. Like there's some sort of event horizon there that we aren't able to peer over, but maybe we can kind of glean it, or we're starting to be able to see that. And Adam, you know a lot about the singularity, or I believe you do. What are your thoughts?
Well, in the McKenna sense of it, infinite novelty is kind of what you're striving for there as a descriptor. And obviously we've slipped over the edge of something around 2012, because that's when there had some milestone moments for Oculus and distributed VR. Also some milestone moments for distributed 3D printing, personal 3D printing. So in my little, microcosm, the slip into exponential novelty certainly did occur. And I always think of it as more of a gradient, like a renaissance, rather than a hitting a wall impact moment that some people kind of, went with.
Right. I don't. It's not the apocalypse. It's not the coming of Christ. It's just a change that comes about. That there's just so much novelty. There's so much
it's already here, man. All of you see these crazy statistics that are always in your Facebook or your Twitter feed or something. Like the shit. Like my favorite one of right now. It's like 80%. God, I'm not going to get it right, but it's like 80% of all humanity's photographs have been taken within the last 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Interest on information.
It's like, it's happening. It's like
it's
that.
kind of things like that.
That's has already happened. So like the vast amount of data networks and like the vast amount of ones and zeros that are making up our day-to-day lives. And it's like if you take it into like, have you guys seen The Big Short? The movie about the stock market shit? Like,
not yet.
Yeah, but that is like, to me, that's like a manifestation of like the singularity gone awry. Things have gotten so complicated that you can't even explain them. Like you can't even explain what a credit default swap is really, or what like trading on derivatives is really. It's so crazy. It's basically like algorithmic, computer math that's just gone awry.
Well, maybe that the singularity is actually we're creating so much complication to the point where we can't manage it. We have to hand it over to the AI just to make the damn thing work.
And that's been happening for a long time, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing that in the financial networks. We can't manage it. It's too complicated. Nobody can explain it.
I'd like to hijack the moment, if I may.
Do it.
All right, we might need some assistance from Dustin on this, but we have a present for Duncan. Duncan, I assume that you can see your own avatar?
I can, I can only see my legs and my hands, unfortunately. I can't, I've seen my avatar,
that's
though.
Enough. All right, we were talking about resurrecting the dead using technology. So if, Dustin, you could hit L on Duncan's keyboard.
That's so cool.
What is that?
That's my puppet.
Yeah.
What happened?
Very cool.
That's my puppet, Lil Hobo. He got stolen in San Jose years ago.
We found him. Adam found him.
Thank you so much, Adam. This means so much to me.
I worked really hard.
Oh, my little guy.
A thank you gift.
I miss you so much.
Whoa. All right, everybody.
Wow, this is the best night of my life.
Great. This is really great.
Awesome job, Adam. That was
Yeah, no problem.
Really cool.
You're doing weird things to him, though.
Well, I mean, yeah, the stuff that you could do. I mean, aside from resurrecting my puppet, I mean, honest to God, for one terrifying moment, I thought some avatar of my mother was going to walk up to me and it was going to be intensely awkward.
Well, we have another surprise coming up. So
no!
Which can happen.
But you have to understand, I mean, when you look at the parallels, someone was saying this is not Jesus, this is not the coming of Jesus Christ. But when you look at the parallels between what's happening and the idea of the day of judgment, the idea of when all that were dead come back to life, and you consider the concept that any photograph is enough to at least reanimate the person in the photograph with some generic AI. That's easy. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that I'm certain that something will be able to scan photographs and at least add basic animation to the photographs, the blink of an eye, a smile, the nodding of a head. And if you can analyze with the Google, what Google's doing right now, certainly you're going to be able to analyze a scene and say, okay, well, there's the grass, there's a dog. We know what grass acts like. In this part of the world, we could actually ascertain what the weather was like on the specific day that the picture was taken. You have all this data incorporated into an image these days. If there's any corollary data, if somebody allowed their location service to be on, then you know the time and the date and the place. So from that, you can animate exactly what the weather was like. And then, of course, if you could do a facial recognition, and then you can attach that digital image to a person's online social media thumbprint, then you would animate that avatar with some AI based on their personality. The whole point is, Terence McKenna talked about the singularity being possibly the invention of a time machine.
Yeah, well, Duncan, there's actually, I was speaking recently to this guy who worked at, I'm forgetting the name of the company right now, but they are working with IBM and Microsoft currently, and what they're trying to do is they're using a $100,000 plus 3D scanner that's like a giant dome of cameras surrounding a person, and they're essentially just recording this person speak into this, just speak while sitting in the middle of this ball, just about their life, stories about themselves. They ask the people questions to get specific personality traits out of them, and they really try to just ascertain as much data as possible about these people. And they feed all of this data into the IBM Watson machine learning supercomputer, and are essentially having the computer learn who this person is, how they talk, how they speak, how they act, what they look like, and all these specific stories oriented about them. And then what they're trying to do is to create this digital signature of these people, like as you were saying, resurrecting people or having digital copies of people. And the machine, in essence, mimics the person virtually, and they want to start adding virtual reality capabilities to be able to interact with these avatars. Right now it's just in their company. They haven't shown any footage of this, but from what I've seen, this is way, way further than I thought it would be by now. And soon enough, we may have these just digital copies of people that could last forever, that you can then interact with, like a just virtual resurrection of this person.
Wow.
You know what that would lead to, right? And it might very well be the where it ends too, depending on how if we want to keep the dead at arm's length. But it was a touch of mechanism as far as the archaic revival. But it could be the reintroduction of the Roman custom of the Hall of Ancestors, only a virtual reality version of that. And it may just be a place where you go and, kind of reconnect with the stories of your forefathers and whatnot, but it was symbolically at an arm's length. You know what I mean? It'd be part of your daily routine, but it would still be like that's the Hall of Ancestors. It's not like your grandmother is always with you as a holographic entity. It's like if you have a robotic assistant or a hollow assistant at some point in the future, you're not going to want it to be your dead grandfather. You know what I mean? And like that'd be a little too creepy.
Yeah, and I think the spiritual implications are pretty far out. What this means for the soul. And how we look at that, how we reinterpret it, what the soul is, and it's by traditional definition, I think it reconfigures that and rejiggers it into something new.
I always found the Kurzweilian transhumanism movement a little bit void of the idea of the soul, and always felt that the high technicians and the high priests should get together in the same room with some shamans and talk about some shit.
Yeah, I think we got to hash it out, and as this goes on, and we can continue to see it evolve. I just was thinking as I was listening to Duncan talk, I wonder how we can extend the feeling, or what if we had the darshan of Neem Karoli Baba in virtual reality? Would it work?
I think it would. I mean, we're talking about archetypes here. It's what you're talking about, this dome at IBM where you sit in a computer panel, or someone inputs into a computer personality traits, historic facts about you, and somehow that creates this virtual avatar. The question is, how much data do I need to animate a mother, for example? Because I think just the term mother, the archetype of the mother, I can already name a few ways that a mother's going to be. A lot of ways that a mother's going to be. So we already know these things. How does a boss act? What does a president act like? Or what does an asshole tend to act like? We really know these archetypes already. So assigning these very broad, generalized personalities to certain people is really a very simple thing, and it's something that a computer on Earth is already doing. The human mind, one of the most advanced biocomputers, the most advanced biocomputer, I suppose, on the planet, what it currently does is it simulates reality and populates that reality with virtual versions of every single person you know. So a person that you have known for a couple of days, you can already simulate 1,000 conversations with that person based on your idea of what their personality might be like. It's clearly something that's possible. So what I'm saying is every single person that is currently existing in a digital image can be and will be resurrected in virtual space, and eventually all of these images and their GPS and temporal coordinates will be put in some kind of supercomputer, some kind of server, the cloud, whatever, and you'll be able to sit at your desk. And let's say you know your parents were at a Dodgers game, 1999, at 7:30, and you, or I guess 1999, let's say, because now at sports events, they're taking pictures of everyone. They have cameras where they take pictures of every single person there, and you can zoom in on every single person in a stadium. So let's say you know your parents were at a Dodgers game, 2016, you know, in the time. You could go to that stadium, zoom in where your parents were, and that could be reanimated and a personality imbued in your parents, and then suddenly you're sitting with your parents at a Dodgers game in virtual reality space talking to them as though you were there. It's not the time machine we imagined, but it certainly fixes the grandfather paradox, and it's about as close to a time machine as I think we're going to see in the next 100 years, you know? It's the time machine.
Cool.
There's a book I read.
Yeah, I've had a similar idea to basically recreating from pictures, like Christmas morning, and then you can run through and kind of pretend that you're a kid again, which is something I'd love to be able to do.
Yeah, it fits.
Yeah, you know, what I'm like thinking of this and listening to this, like I'm a huge Grateful Dead fan, right? And like one of the greatest gift, the greatest thing that the Grateful Dead did is they recorded every show, right? And like there are shows where I could listen to the show, listen to the pop on the live recording, and I'm pretty close to being there. You know, the memory is so visceral, and just like the sounds of the crowd and the sounds of, you know, them tuning and of certain songs and just conjuring up like that memory, it's so visceral that if you took it a step further, and you know, I'm sitting here right now, and if I kind of saw the Jerry Garcia avatar, you know, it could get pretty close.
I'd like to say something about the time travel thing Duncan said. That whole musing that McKenna had about if time travel were invented and that was the 2012 event, and it would be a point where time travel couldn't happen until the first time machine was invented because the roads, you know, hadn't been built yet,
Right.
yada, yada, yada. Along that line of thinking, if you replace time machine or time travel technology with mass surveillance state, then the beginning of the mass surveillance state was the beginning of time travel because of the amount of data that was captured in time to that point.
Exactly, man. Exactly. See, that is it. That is it. Because think of the compulsion to take pictures of things. What you're witnessing, anytime anyone takes a picture, they're opening up a kind of digital, a digital inhalation of all reality around them. And when you look at the government, thinks that, who knows why they're surveilling people. The government is surveilling people for this reason or that. Who knows the real reason behind it? Who knows why? But one thing we know for certain is that data is being sucked in to servers at a rate unprecedented in all of human history. And and whatever the reason is that the current power structures think that they're doing this for, it doesn't fucking matter. Because what really is happening is this massive reservoir of data referring to the specific period in human history is being gathered up. It's being gathered up. And any time you take a digital image of yourself and it goes on the cloud, anytime you stream something that populates the YouTube, servers, wherever, you're much like the early human who steps in the clay and leaves a footprint that we now analyze to get an idea of what people used to live like. Every single thing that you do digitally is being imprinted and recorded eternally in a brand new medium, a kind of strange, muddy stuff that we are all putting ourselves into, which means that this thing that we're calling a time machine right now is sort of building itself around us. Like this thing right now, even this, as rudimentary as it is people 10 years from now are going to look at this and think it is so hilariously dumb. It's going to be like looking at an Atari or something like that. But even this, the data being recorded from this experience, anybody who wants to see my POV will be able to pop into my POV here. And in the same way, anything that you engage yourself in digitally is going to be something that is like a riverbed, that the consciousness of any person from the future who wants to move through that temporary runnel that you made in digital space will be able to experience. And that's a fascinating thing to consider, that not only are we all currently architects of a time machine, but more than likely any experience that we're having, which is being recorded digitally, is going to be re-experienced by an unknown number of people from the future.
Woo. Yeah, if I think about my Gmail account, you get a lot of information from me just by the text that's in my Gmail account, and it's not going to go anywhere. And I do think about, like, where's that going to end up? I'm going to, if I had children, would I leave it to my children? If my mom died, I would certainly want to see her Gmail account, and just would be interesting to go through that and kind of feel my mom a little bit. And Facebook's kind of on the forefront of bringing this time travel, really, with them buying Oculus, them getting into VR. They have a 10-year plan based on these great VR scientists and researchers that they've brought into the fold. And their Facebook, they want it to be where how you connect with everybody in the richest possible way. And 360 photos you'll share, or 360 video when we have that capability running. You'll record your grandson's birthday party, and it'll always be there. And who knows how much more data. We're getting good at extracting data from our real world. Are we going to bring the whole world into VR?
Yeah, and Gunter, real quick, you're saving your mother's emails, not because when you get old you want to sit in front of your fireplace and read them. You save your mother's emails so that a computer can scan every single thing that your mother ever wrote to understand her speech patterns, her writing patterns, her predilections, and her personality, and so that you can use that as a kind of social DNA to resurrect your mother in virtual space. That's why you save the emails. That's why emails are going to be so important, and that's why anything that you're writing that can be accessed by anyone in the future could theoretically be used to spawn a brand new you. And it gets even fucking weirder, man, because we're talking about, let's imagine a hacker hacks into your Gmail, scans however many emails are on there, and then creates a little virtual you in their dimension, in their computer rather. Now they have while you're alive. We're talking voodoo here. Like how people supposedly, don't take my picture, it'll steal my soul. In the same way, how are you going to deal with this brand new kind of hacker who from time to time sends you video of the virtual version of you just getting fisted by monkeys in some digital place, screaming, "Oh God, no, please save me. Why did you have such a shitty password? I'm being infinitely raped by monkeys now. Send me $1,000. Send me $1,000 and I will release your digital avatar back to you. It won't suffer anymore." That's what we're looking at. That's the kind of shit that we're speeding towards at a relatively faster time.
Yeah, oh man, it's so true, but it's also, though, I don't know, I totally agree, man, and one day we might, fuck, man, if I have to bribe someone to keep me from being fisted by monkeys, but it's like, I mean, that's an intense thought to go, but it does bring up the question, though, like, who is the self that we are broadcasting when we are tweeting, when we are Facebooking? Like, who is that self? What manifestation of Duncan is it that is on Twitter, like, and that sends emails? And, like, I could argue that is just... It's sort of like this amalgamated sort of avatar, not quite. I don't know who is that person? Like what Zach is that on Facebook?
Well, it's rudimentary right now because the social self is limited to your ability to articulate. You know, depending on what way that you want to express yourself through comedy, writing, whatever the thing is, selfies, whatever it is, it's right now it is just as rudimentary as this reality that we're existing in. But like we were talking about earlier, once we start achieving even the most simple brain digitizing our thought patterns, then the social imprint is going to become more precise in the same way that as processing speeds increase and graphic cards get better and VR technology gets better, the realities that we're existing in are going to become more precise. Your online presence is a crafted version of you that you like to show to the world, and eventually the online presence is going to be a digitized version of your emotional states. And don't forget, man, even now, the Apple Watch and so many of these fitness trackers are already recording these biorhythms. You know, they're already recording your heartbeat throughout the day. We're getting the real rudimentary beginnings of the recordings of what the other forms of data that we're outputting. It really is a matter of time before we have more and more precise versions of ourselves online. And the question is, who are we? Are we our online self? I've heard that people who are committing suicide will delete their social profiles prior to killing themselves, which is a really fascinating thing. So, yeah, who is this self? What? Who knows?
Yeah, who is?
Go ahead, Zach.
No, I was agreeing. I mean, I think it's just it's a fascinating fundamental question that's been asked since the dawn of man. It's like who is the self? Who is I? You know, and this version, this augmented version of the self that we can create through our social profiles, through our social behavior, through our digital behavior. You know, that moment when we can really start capturing everything that we do, and we stop making these saccharine sweet versions of ourselves online or on Instagram, like, you know, just like the selfie phenomenon on Instagram, which is just a saccharine sweet version of you know, who that self really is. But the moment, like, I don't know, this almost makes me want to, like, Periscope me going to, like, you know, take a piss in the morning, because, like, I want that to be recorded into digital space forever. So, you know, when I'm
to do that.
I wonder.
But I want it there. I want it out there. So like when I am dead and gone, and that Zach that you create 100 years from now, I want it to be accurate.
Yeah.
So I'm wandering into the, like, okay, my digital self can be created. It's a thing that somebody can talk to or experience, and it's similar to me. But what if I can talk to myself, or I confront this self?
That's crazy, man.
That'd
be very cool.
Oh man, if I could go back and talk to 25-year-old Zach, that would be fantastic.
Or how do you deal with like a version of yourself that's actually better than you? What happens?
You try to kill it.
The digital version of yourself is, like, way more disciplined, way more prolific, and kind of judges your meat body like, oh, what a waste of a life.
He's watching television again.
Maybe he'll be jealous of the real.
Isn't that what Crowley did with his ring experiment, where one day he'd wear a certain ring and he'd be a war hawk, and then the next day he'd wear a different ring and he'd be a peacenik? Is that what we do with our social media profiles? Like your Facebook is one face, and then your FetLife profile is a totally different personality, and you swap in between and explore those different facets of yourself. And I imagine avatars within virtual reality would serve the same purpose.
Absolutely. And that is, to me, one of the most exciting aspects of this, is that you are freed from the tyranny of only being allowed to be oneself. Because one of the great mythologies of the time that we live in is this idea that a person is one thing. And that is such a fucked up, degrading, and awful concept, which is, this is how many times do you hear people say, you're not being yourself lately. I don't know this person. Well, that's because a human being is a hive of personalities. And this is something that Gurdjieff talked about, this idea that there isn't any one you. There's the you when you're angry, the you when you're tired, the you when you're hungry, the you when you're excited, the you when you're bored. There's all these different versions of you, the you when you're being lazy. The next time you find yourself procrastinating and being completely lazy and self-destructive and not taking care of the business that you need to be taking care of, you can actually have a conversation with that version of you. You can say, who are you? Who is this being that is so resistant to work? What is this thing? And the thing will talk to you. It'll say hello to you. So in the same way, how fun and how liberating it will be to be able to experience these versions of ourselves completely in digital space, no longer trapped by the physical body, which is forcing us to give the illusion of an individual self to a world populated by people who are swarms of personalities.
Yeah, and it's also playing off this idea of these roles that we've created for ourselves that are still trapped in the agrarian age turning into the industrial age version of society. We're still trapped in that mentality, of the role, Duncan Trussell is a comedian, or, Zach Leary's a podcaster, or whoever, Chris is a lawyer, he's a banker, and it's like we're trapped into these roles that seem to define us and haunt us for our entire lives. And that's kind of an unfair rap. I think that's an unfair shake. What if I want to change midstream? And our society makes it so hard to do that. You have to pick a horse and ride on it in order to sort of survive within these constructs we've created for ourselves. So why not just tear it apart every couple of years and every couple of months and just do something different?
Exactly.
Well, you talk about you're saying who are we? What is this self? And it just comes into that we're not one thing, and how would we define ourselves? And am I mean, I've had crazy stuff who am I, going crazy about it. Am I the teachings that elementary school installed into me when I was young, and the fact that I use a language that is a linear thing that you have to teach and you get passed down into you, and now that's how I communicate even with myself and to the world? Or am I the environment that I grow up in? Who am I?
Well, I mean, it seems like...
Yeah, well...
I was just going to say, it seems like second thoughts in general, things we have every day, all of us, it seems like that's a schizophrenic point. You walk down the street and you have a reaction, a racist reaction to somebody walking up the other side of the street, but then you instantly correct yourself and be like, oh, you shouldn't think that way. Who's talking to who there? Is the angel talking to the monkey, or is it, two halves of one whole, or what exactly is going on there? And that happens to everybody every day.
And what Gunter was saying, it's about especially around our education system. Our education system is the way that it's tailored from, in the Western world anyway, from elementary school all the way out through college. It's about, specificity, in that you're trying to focus, you're trying to major on something that is going to change your behavior within one area of your life and get you to be a specialist. And this all came off of the second we started creating the agrarian age, it divided us into roles. Gunter's going to be good at the harvesting, AtomJaay is going to be good at the shucking, and Duncan is going to be good at the processing and turning it into food. And we've really compartmentalized ourselves into the nature of self.
We become machines in that respect.
Yeah, exactly.
We are the machines, giving birth to the machines.
Running the machine, though.
Yeah, and Coznefx over here is a fucking gingerbread man. It's awesome.
Oh, man. Man, we have so much. I could talk for days. We can hang out here for a day or two if you just want to do that. We have cool things to show as well. Like Tom, I wanted you to just come down here real quick, Tom. If you're still paying attention in your VR headset, and just show off some of your avatar. But maybe he's not.
Tom is awesome. Oh.
Whoa. The other side, Duncan.
Wow, cool.
And can you change to a couple of the others?
Wow. Tom, I like you.
Tom's got a room called Tom's Digital Life, and it's just... We should go...
Where's Vishnu?
We have... what do you have in store, Adam?
I have a special room that I made with both of you in mind, pulling from the ancient Vedic Sanskrit texts.
Whoa. Cool. Wow.
Yeah, man.
Just want to squeeze it in just because we didn't have a chance to mention it, but one true promise of VR, and it's another mechanism, is that we have a chance to suspend our culture in light, or at least reduce the physical footprint of our culture and do a lot of our cultural work in VR. And I think that's one of the huge promises, and it's one of my sticking points, because I think using 3D printing and local additive manufacturing as an export function for VR is a huge part of making that happen, along with blurring the lines between the reality and the virtual reality, so to speak.
Cool.
Turning material into light, and so that we're not building a bunch of tchotchkes and fetish over things, but in this space there is no scarcity, or you don't need the resources to build. Everybody can build their own beautiful vistas or whatever's in their mind, and I am interested in how that's going to impact the world. We might not be driving cars around as much or needing things as much because we get fulfillment. Right now I live in an RV, and I'm here in a huge-ass place and can't see the confinement of my walls around me, and that makes me happy and can settle into that.
I say
real quick, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
With 3D printing, one thing that would be so cool that we can't do yet is right now everyone... can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, right now everyone in this room, it would be so cool if after this, if there was some digital medium that we could all sculpt in right now. I don't know who's here, but if there's some developer or someone who knows how to do this shit. Imagine if floating in front of us was some digital medium that we could spend the next 30 minutes sculpting and then print out of a 3D printer so that we all have some little token to, remember this moment. It would be so cool. It would be so fun. The group art that people could create, the massive structures that we could build and then print out a micro version of that as a necklace, a ring, whatever. It would just be incredible. The interactivity and the ability to print this stuff out in 3D printers is so insane. The fact that 3D printers have become the spinnerets, where this dimension that we're existing in right now can ooze into the material universe, and that the combined creative process of everyone in this room could somehow be symbolized in some sculpture. Man,
Did you ever see this?
Look on screens. Look what they're showing.
Check the video.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, so this is called Oculus Medium, and you're sculpting. You're not together in that world, but you probably will be. And Adam, I know you got a lot to say about the 3D printing, because he's doing what you're saying right now, but I want to show this video, and just another one, Tilt Brush. I believe you guys got to check out Tilt Brush on the Vive.
Yeah,
At least you did, Duncan.
Yeah, I saw it. It's amazing.
Yeah. There's another bit of software called Make VR, which is a social, or at least you can have multi-users in there and do exactly what you're talking about. And then with the distributed network of personal 3D printers, all of these people in the room can make use of their local 3D printer. They just type a zip code into a website, and they don't need to have a 3D printer themselves, and they could have access to that little, figurine that we all sculpted together. So the network is being built, the software is being built, and everything's coming together to realize that vision.
Yeah,
that's great.
Cool.
Up on the screen is Tilt Brush. So some guy made this psychedelic beastie using Tilt Brush, and it's just, when I saw this, I didn't think this was possible, and I've been in VR for 2 years now. This took me, I'm like, look at this. Imagine being on LSD and being in there and looking at that creation.
Or the things that your mind can come up with that you'd be able to create while you're in
yourself.
there.
So.
Well, from a psychedelic standpoint, a lot of people feel that the purpose of the psychedelic trips and where you go is you go in there in order to bring something back to the rest of us to kind of, tool over and figure out for ourselves. But these are the tools for doing that, taking a layman and giving them the tools to easily externalize, the imagination, because that's where all the imagination is, like the USB drive between the, let's say the tryptamine dimension and this dimension.
I think people are going to become a lot more creative. Some people are like, I'm not creative, but when they get in here and they have those kind of natural tools where you can just sculpt with your hands and then you can just undo. It's that kind of power that the investment in materials and time, it's not as great. I think people are going to really discover their creativity.
That's for sure, because how much of creativity is stifled not by your own inability to create, but by your fear of other people's reaction to what you've made. And so when you free a person from the anchor of their world identity and give them a brand new identity, there really is nothing to lose by the developmental stages of whatever art you're engaging in. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thanks, guys. This has been amazing.
Yes, so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, this is
Where
such a
can
thank
people-
you so much, Gunner.
Yeah. Oh, I'm over the moon about this, man. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to keep talking about it, and I'm sure, with you guys in your podcast and VR, there'd be all kinds of opportunities and things you guys could do in a VR space. So all of us are here to chat with you guys about that, and we've been doing it for years now.
Cool.
So not everybody knows who Duncan and Zach is, and they might now want to go check out your work. How can people find you? We'll start with Duncan.
I've got a podcast called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, and you can find all the episodes by going to duncantrussell.com.
Excellent. How about you, Zach?
I have a podcast called It's All Happening, but you can go to itsallhappeningshow.com or go to my website, zachleary.com, and read my blog and go to my podcast.
Excellent. And what about you, Adam? You want to point anybody anywhere? Any 3D printing stuff?
Just now pivoting from personal 3D printing evangelist into, I guess, multimedia studio, embracing VR and trying to make some experiences to further my agenda. So just AtomJaay.com, AtomJaay. That'll get you to pretty much everywhere I'm at.
Cool, dude. And Bob, Coznefx.
So you can follow me at Coznefx on Twitter, and our podcast is Left-Handed VR Podcast, and that's at LHVR Podcast. And then I'm also in a band Sunchill 3. That's Sunchill number 3, so you can go to sunchill3.com. And we do Sybient, which is a cross between psychedelic and ambient music. Our latest
that sounds awesome.
Past couple songs, Psychonauts Journey series is basically like we have. The last one was the Lucy mix, and the previous one was Dimitri mix. And so what we try and do is replicate in audio what different psychedelic experiences, what we think they'd sound like.
Sweet.
Awesome. And he's also a podcaster too. Podcaster of the Left-Handed VR podcast. There's 3 of them, and they're all left-handed.
Yep.
It's good stuff. Check that out. Yeah, follow me, guntersuniverse.com. That's all I need to say. Next week, I've got the developer of Casino VR, Hazma Sidqui, and that's going to be great. Tune in for that next Tuesday. Got to thank Mr. Q, Cubed Paradox, who worked on this room up until the show started to get things fixed. Really appreciate that. Appreciate K-Dog for filming all of this. Appreciate all the patrons that are backing me. And, of course, Duncan, Zach, Coznefx, Adam, thank you so much for being around the table and hanging. This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Hi,
guys.
everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Hare Krishna. And see you next Tuesday back here in Gunter's Universe. Good night. I usually have music, but it's broken. That's okay. Sweet. Now let's stand up and stretch our legs. Yeah.
Can we do a group photo?
What?
Make a group photo.
Group photo is perfect. We actually can take 360 photos of the whole environment, and I can point you to those. Duncan and Zach can give you copies of those, which is pretty sweet. So, just gather around and VR Pillar. Drop some acid.
Yes, I am.
Drop your acid right now. This is the time. Actually, the time was about an hour and a half ago.